The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. Thanks for joining us today. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary, which is not news. Commentary is opinion, yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. The Wells Report in progress. Time to start off with the front page. This was news since yesterday's show and while we were sleeping. There is breaking news at this hour. The escaped killer that escaped from a prison in Pennsylvania has been captured in that state. This being reported by Fox News. Danilo Cavalcante has been captured alive in Pennsylvania after he escaped from Chester County Prison and eluded authorities for nearly 2 weeks. This according to state police announcing this morning. Swarms of heavily armed police were seen holding a perimeter in the South Coventry Township late last night. It was unclear where law enforcement ultimately pinned down the fugitive. State police and U.S. Border Patrol caught Cavalcante near the home where he stole a .22 caliber rifle with a scope and ammunition from an open garage on Monday night. This according to law enforcement sources. The House Republicans have opened up an impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden. This from USA Today. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, the Republican from California, announced the House will open a formal impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden, escalating a Republican investigation that started in January when the GOP took majority control over the lower chamber. The House Oversight, Judiciary, and Ways and Means committees will lead the inquiry after months of investigating Biden, whom Republicans say benefited from his son Hunter Biden's business dealings. Quote, "Today, I am directing our House committees to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden," McCarthy said at a news conference yesterday. Quote, "This is the logical next step that will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public." Unquote. Also from this morning in the economy, the Washington Examiner now reports that inflation increased to 3.7%. That's the rate for the year ending in August, the second such increase after a full year of declines. The uptick reported Wednesday, that's this morning, by the Bureau of Labor Statistics in an update to the Consumer Price Index, is bad news for President Joe Biden, who's been trying to reassure voters that he is curbing price pressure, and for the Federal Reserve, which has taken maneuvers to bring down inflation by raising interest rates. On a month-to-month basis, inflation rose 0.6%, in line with expectations. It's important to note the major factor driving up the headline number was gasoline prices. Gas prices rose last month and accounted for more than half of the headline increase. Gasoline prices rose more than 10% from just July to August alone, pushing the overall CPI, Consumer Price Index, higher. The Ford CEO likes his third contract offer. The UAW, still mulling it over. This from USA Today. Ford CEO Jim Farley said late last night that the Dearborn automaker has made its third labor contract offer to the UAW in hopes of avoiding a strike at 11:59 p.m. tomorrow night. Both sides are looking for a deal. We don't have one yet. We put in a huge offer yesterday, Farley told the Free Press. That's the Detroit Free Press. It'll be the most lucrative offer in the 80-year history of the UAW and Ford. Ford was the first to submit a counteroffer to the UAW, which earned praise publicly from UAW President Shawn Fain. An estimated 150,000 auto workers are represented by the International Union, United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agriculture Implement Workers of America, based in Detroit, known simply as the UAW. Elsewhere in politics, Speaker McCarthy is under the gun from people on his right flank in his own Republican caucus. This from the New York Times. Speaker Kevin McCarthy's job is on the line as the House returned yesterday to confront a funding impasse that could lead the House to cause a government shutdown or a challenge to the California Republicans' hold on the top post in the House of Representatives. Far-right Republicans are refusing to back a measure to keep the federal government funded past September 30th without substantial spending cuts and stringent new border policies that stand little chance of becoming law. They also threatened to depose Mr. McCarthy should he turn to Democrats for assistance in scrounging together the votes needed to avoid a shutdown. Intensifying the pressure, Representative Matt Gaetz, a Florida Republican and frequent critic of the Speaker, delivered a floor speech last night outlining the arch-conservative case against Mr. McCarthy, laying the groundwork for a potential move to oust him. The criticism was to cover what Matt Gaetz and others see as McCarthy's failure to live up to promises he made to win the speakership, including his handling of the budget process and continuing investigations of President Biden and his family. For its part, the White House is upset about the GOP perhaps breaking a budget agreement. This from The Hill. The White House said yesterday they went on offensive against House Republicans, accusing them of breaking an agreement reached during debt ceiling negotiations and pushing budget cuts that would harm the economy and families. Shalonda Young, director of the Office of Management and Budget, wrote in a memo that while the White House, House Democrats, and senators in both parties have stood by the contours of the agreement brokered in May, House Republicans have instead pursued more partisan budget bills. Quote, their appropriation bills violate the bipartisan budget agreement and instead push the same deep cuts the House Freedom Caucus has been demanding since the start of the year, unquote. This according to the memo written by Shalonda Young. Young's memo cited various programs that would face cuts if House GOP budget bills were enacted, including funding for law enforcement, slashing funding for schools with low-income students, raising housing costs, undermining government efforts to reduce lead exposure and pollution, and reduce support for teachers. The White House and top Republicans reached a deal in May to lift the debt ceiling for 2 years and apply new caps on federal spending over that same duration. Border news today from Fox News. Border Patrol leadership last month sent daily migrant release targets, or set daily migrant release targets, for its sectors in order to keep escalating numbers of migrants in custody at a, quote, manageable level, unquote, including potentially increasing releases into the U.S. interior as agents continue to see rises in numbers at the southern border. An internal August 8th memo from an acting deputy chief to Border Patrol field chiefs and deputies said that sectors are facing an influx that is outpacing numbers of migrants being either released or transferred to Immigration and Customs Enforcement for removal. The email was obtained by Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody's office. It said that daily encounters continue to surpass the daily permanent bookouts, and the in-custody numbers continue to rise, creating significant risks to agents and detainees. Quote, we respectfully request that you urgently use these bookout targets, release targets, to formalize your daily processing pathway plans to include transitioning to NTA/OR when consequent pathways are not sufficient. In state news today, in Texas, a new law mandates armed security officers in every school. This from Fox News. Texas lawmakers quietly passed a sweeping mandate for school safety measures, including a requirement to post an armed security officer at every school and provide mental health training for certain district employees. Texas House Bill 3, which was signed into law June 14th by Republican Governor Greg Abbott, went into effect September 1st and comes in the wake of the horrific Uvalde school shooting that killed 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School in May of 2022. In the bill, each school district campus is required to have armed security guards, which include a school district police officer, a school resource officer, a commissioned peace officer employee, a school marshal, or a school district employee who has completed school safety training and carries a handgun on their person on school premises. In Oregon, an Oregon law dubbed the nation's most extreme gun control measure heads to trial next week. This case has drawn close attention from firearms advocates and opponents. Quote, this case is about a bare majority of voters passing a poorly written ballot measure that erodes, and I would say erases, a constitutional right, unquote. This is from attorney Tony Aiello Jr., speaking to Fox News. Aiello represents a pair of Harney County gun owners challenging Measure 114 under the Oregon Constitution. Oregonians passed Measure 114 last November with 50.65% of the vote, with voters in just 6 of the state's 36 counties supporting it. The law, which groups like the NRA says is the nation's most extreme gun control initiative, requires a permit to purchase any weapon and bans the sale of magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds. Gun sales surged after the measure passed late last year, with Oregon State Police fielding thousands of new background check requests every single day. In international news this morning, USA Today reports North Korea's Kim Jong-un told Russian President Vladimir Putin that his country would always stand by Moscow as it defends its security interests in the anti-imperialist front, as two authoritarian leaders met at a space base adjoining a rocket facility in a far-flung corner of eastern Russia. This happened earlier today. Kim and Putin's face-to-face talks at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in Siberia lasted 4 to 5 hours, according to Russian state media, which had been publishing some of their remarks addressed to reporters. The talks provided an opportunity for Russia to obtain desperately needed arms and for Kim to appear on the global stage after years of suffocating international sanctions. Quote, "A fierce standoff is underway between progress and reactionism, between justice and injustice," Kim said at a luncheon hosted by Putin, who Kim called Comrade Putin, unquote. The process of a multipolar world is actively developing thanks to the common will and joint strength of independent forces. USA Today reports that an international Delta flight diverted to the Azores because of an oxygen problem on board. Passengers were left more or less in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. This happened on Friday into Saturday, when a Delta Airlines flight from Accra, Ghana to New York was forced to divert to Lajes Airport in the Terceira Islands in the Azores. Delta Flight 157 from Accra to New York JFK diverted to the Lajes Airport following a mechanical issue with a backup oxygen system. The crew descended to a lower altitude out of an abundance of caution during the diversion, and the aircraft landed safely. Drake Castaneda, a Delta spokesperson, told USA Today in a statement, "An alternate aircraft was dispatched from Lisbon to help our customers more quickly get to their final destinations, while the original aircraft was repaired by maintenance technicians. We apologize to our customers for the delay in their travels." And that is this morning's front page. I'm John David Wells. Again, thanks very much for being with us today. We have some information about something that has haunted Dallas, Texas for decades. There is some surprising information about a seminal event that happened in North Texas years and years ago. And we're going to spend a little bit of time with it when we return here on the Wells Report. Also, by the way, the political news today is inescapable. First, an impeachment inquiry into the sitting president of the United States, Joe Biden. This is going to up the ante with the investigations that have been going on with the House Ways and Means Committee, the House Oversight Committee, and the House Judiciary Committee. This will give them new powers. We'll go over all of that. Also, Kevin McCarthy is under the gun. He is quite literally being cast into a very bad light by a couple of his major members of his caucus in the Republican side of the House. It may indeed cost Speaker McCarthy his job. How is that going to unfold? We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. You can also join us on our chat room. Be very quick to join us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We got lots of people there. Poker Monkey's making an appearance. Gary Abshire. Eddie Jones is here, and we're looking for you. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
And good morning. This is the Wells Report. There is breaking news that escaped killer that got out of a Pennsylvania prison and essentially roamed free for a couple of weeks has been captured. There is a press conference going right this very minute, live from Chester County. This is live now, and let's go to the videotape and show you a little bit about what's going on here.
And we did have several instances of that where he was pushed and had to move. But, he doesn't have night vision or anything like that, the type of technology that many of our operators had out there. And so traversing rugged terrain is difficult to do. I believe it was just easier for him to do in the late evening hours and late afternoon. I believe that's what caused it. It was a scalp wound, and they bleed pretty significantly. I'm told there was not any significant injury.
Did he have a phone?
Just one, ma'am.
He was able to get a car and a gun, a vehicle and a gun during this 2-week period?
No, I mean, all along, we asked people to secure as best they could. Unfortunately, he was still able to acquire some of those things. Again, those are just some of the challenges we deal with in an investigation like this. Our people rise to those challenges, and ultimately, again, he was successfully captured.
I know that you led the effort also in July earlier this year when that person escaped using bed sheets. It was a chocolate lab that ultimately led to his arrest, and now here we are again. You're talking about a canine moving in and basically disabling Cavalcante. Can you just kind of talk about the having canines and their use and how much of an asset they are when you're trying to navigate tough terrain and track down dangerous people?
Sure. I mean, in the case of Tucker, he was kind of a civilian. I would say we deputized, and brought him in. He's now an honorary member of PSP, but lab. But he was not involved in this. That was in Warren that this gentleman's referring to. Just, I believe it's a Shepherd or a Belgian Malinois. Just 1 minute, if I can come back to this gentleman, I apologize. In any event, canines play a very important role, not only for tracking, but also for, just like in a circumstance like this, safely capturing someone. Far better that we're able to release a patrol dog like this and have them subdue the individual than have to use lethal force. And so, again, our preference is always to use other means. Canines play a very important role.
For those of us who aren't familiar with the area, can you tell us a little bit more about where he was? It appears he was in front of a commercial building. Was he hiding within that building, or he was?
He was in the wooded area, again, west of PA 100 there.
I'm sorry, west of?
PA 100.
Okay.
Are you aware of how he was getting nourishment and, liquids?
No, that'll all be part of the interview we'll attempt to do. Whether he'll talk to us or not, that's obviously entirely up to him. But that will be something that we'll be asking.
Sir, at this juncture, can you release where he worked in Chester County prior to his 2021 arrest for homicide?
Unfortunately, I don't have that the list of those locations. I know that he did a variety of jobs installing flooring, but I don't have the specific list of work locations.
How long will he be at the Avondale Barracks?
Long enough for us to process him, and however long an interview lasts with him. I don't expect it to be for a very extended period of time, and again, at that point, he'll be transported to an SCI.
Sir, is there any concern that he would team up with another small man to step inside the trench coat, Little Rascal style?
No.
Can you give us more detail on the actual encounter with the dog? Did the dog tackle him, bite him?
Again, I didn't see this specific capture. What I would tell you is the way those dogs are trained is to simply go to the person. They will grab whatever is closest for them to grab, and then they are trained to detain that individual. They don't just keep biting and releasing or trying to cause additional injury. They simply grab onto and try and hold that person in place until officers can get there. So
a press conference from Chester County, Pennsylvania, after the capture of Danilo Cavalcante. Breaking news this morning on the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
This is the Wells Report. It is Wednesday, September 13th, year of our Lord 2023. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you find value in this broadcast, please do me a favor. Subscribe to it on every platform that you watch it on. Subscribe and share. Share with your friends that you think might be interested in this show. And ask them to subscribe. Also, hit the notification button. If there's a little bell or something along that line, hit that little notification so you know when we're on the air. And by all means, give us a thumbs up, give us a like. If your platform supports it, those statistics help us immeasurably, and for goodness sakes, make sure that you support the advertisers you see on this broadcast. It was a big day in Washington, D.C. yesterday. A huge day, in fact. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, the Republican from California, announced that the House of Representatives will now open a formal impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden. This escalates a Republican investigation that began all the way back in January when the GOP took control of the lower chamber.
House Republicans have uncovered serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct. Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption. Now, here's what we know so far. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's and his son's business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration, treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. That's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the president would want to answer these questions and allegations as well. This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer at the Committee on Oversight, in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan for Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith on Ways and Means. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, these facts should concern all Americans. The American people deserve to know that the public offices are not for sale, and that the federal government is not being used to cover up the actions of a politically associated family. Now, I would encourage the president and his team to fully cooperate with this investigation in the interests of transparency. We are committed to getting the answers for the American public. Nothing more, nothing less. We will go wherever the evidence takes us.
And that is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, starting an official impeachment inquiry into the President of the United States. He said that he does not take this lightly. He cannot take this lightly. There are all kinds of political risks involved, not just for the Democrat Party, not just for the President of the United States, but also for the Republican Party itself. Jesse Watters Primetime, appears every evening on Fox News. I have never seen a reporter coalesce all of these various facts into a more concise, more brilliant package than what you're going to see right this very moment. This is Jesse Watters from last night.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's officially opened an impeachment inquiry into President Biden.
House Republicans have uncovered serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct. Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden.
Joe Biden's legacy, his presidency, and his family's freedom and fortune are now on the line. An impeachment inquiry will ultimately unlock President Joe Biden's bank accounts, his offshore bank accounts, and his family spider web of shells. The impeachment inquiry also focuses on the cover-up, the Biden administration's obstruction of justice. This will lead here. 1, Biden resigns before the end of the year. 2, Biden and the Democrats tangle with the House, continue with the cover-up, and expose the president even more, forcing the House to move to an official impeachment with months of televised hearings and a full House floor vote, which could send articles of impeachment to the Senate for trial. Or 3, the impeachment inquiry stays an inquiry and drags out, making the Republicans look weak and foolish. Now, are the Democrats walking into a trap? Hillary Vaughn asked.
You basically dared House Republicans to launch this impeachment inquiry. Now they have.
Yeah.
Do you regret it?
No, please don't do it. It's just like those dangerous men over there, you know, the cheap thrills and everything. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just like if they got to do it, they got to do it. You know.
Are you
it's a political loser.
Are you confident the president did nothing wrong?
Yes, I am.
How?
I absolutely am confident.
That was Senator Bob Casey's face on his shoulder. Senator's sick, so I guess is what it is. And we hope he's better. The president did nothing wrong is their defense. Denial's not a defense. The Democrats will have to mount a defense to specific allegations. Allegations based upon witness testimony, bank records, emails, voicemails, texts, photographs, and whistleblowers. For instance, Putin's billionaire buddy wired the Biden family $3.5 million, sat down to dinner with Joe, and then President Joe Biden mysteriously left her off the sanctions list. Why? Joe Biden flew Hunter to China on Air Force Two. He returned with a bag of money, demanded more money or his dad would get revenge, and in return, Joe Biden facilitated purchases of American car companies, wrote letters of recommendations to colleges, disbanded the FBI's China task force, covered up the lab leak, and didn't pop the balloon until it floated across the country. Then Joe Biden lied about his family being paid by China. Why? The Chinese bribed Hunter Biden with a 3.5-carat diamond. Why? Joe Biden flew Hunter to Mexico, where he met with the president and a billionaire. Hunter took the money, then walked his Mexican clients into the West Wing. Why? Why did the Biden family use 20 shell companies? Why'd they use burner phones? Why'd Joe Biden use alias emails? When Joe Biden took his family to St. Croix to the Caribbean for 8 straight years, who paid? What was Joe Biden doing at business dinners and on phone calls and in White House meetings with his son's dirty clients? How do they explain emails that they're saying they're holding 10 for the big guy and that Hunter gives half his salary to dad? How? How do they explain the commingled accounts? Hunter paying his father's household expenses, his father's phone bills. And why every time someone zeroes in on the Bidens, there's trouble. Trump gets impeached. The laptop gets censored. The whistleblowers get boxed in. Why did an FBI informant say Joe Biden took a $5 million bribe from Ukraine? Bribery is an impeachable offense. After all of that evidence, how can you say Biden wasn't for sale and he didn't know he was for sale? You can't. How can you say Joe Biden didn't benefit when he did and when his whole family did? You can't. But it'll be fun to watch him try.
It's not going to be fun. This is going to damage the entire nation. And it is something that we have to look at from a sober and straightforward way. There is, however, another player involved in this particular story, and that is the mainstream media. The mainstream media has been trying to cover for the Biden administration as opposed to covering the Biden administration, two completely different concepts, and they are continuing to do so to this very day. A representative was essentially accosted by a foreign reporter who asked some very serious questions regarding the actual evidence against President Biden.
Question. Yes, ma'am. Can I just ask, what actual evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you successfully bullied Speaker McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge?
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. It's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the president, or the vice president at the time, on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch, the prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blunt, look, I'll turn it over to the attorney.
The American people can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
Yeah, it's because the media doesn't report on it. And that is a very true statement. Like I said, the mainstream media covers for President Biden. They do not cover President Biden. Getting back to what I just said moments ago, this is damaging to the United States. There are an awful lot of people that voted for President Joe Biden. And two things are at work here. Those people are infuriated that the Republicans are coming after the guy they voted for. Or there are Democrats out there who voted for President Joe Biden who are pretty disappointed in what they're finding out. In other words, there isn't much to be positive about if you voted for Joe Biden. You're either upset at the Republicans, the evil Republicans, for trying to, as this reporter, probably from the London Times, asks about, is there any real evidence pointed at the president? Well, there's certainly circumstantial evidence, and it's certainly worthy of an investigation. Is it worthy of an impeachment? We'll see. But there has to be incontrovertible evidence. Enough so that people will go to the Biden family and say, hey, look, you guys have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. The Democrats are in a tight spot. The president is infirm. He is a liability politically every time he opens his mouth. Every time. And they need somebody else at the head of the ticket. If not, an entirely new ticket. And that brings Gavin Newsom into play and selected other Democrat candidates. RFK Jr., for example. Although I don't believe the Democrat establishment would have anything to do with RFK Jr., not so much because of his controversial past, but because he harkens back to a different Democrat Party, one that is not totally subservient to the communist, leftist, socialist, fascist, crazy people that currently run that party. Just my opinion, by the way. But every time they open their mouth, my theory and my title of what I refer to them as is more and more confirmed. But this is a tough day for Republicans, and you could see some of it on the face of Jesse Waters. There is a temptation to be smug. Don't be smug. This is a tragedy. All of it. That it wasn't stopped during the Obama administration is probably the biggest strategy of all. I know because I reported it on this broadcast that President Obama called his vice president in, Joe Biden, and said, knock it off. Apparently, that fell on deaf ears. And the vice president was not further sanctioned by the President of the United States. And so, we're here with what appears to be a compromised president. Not just because of this impeachment and the inquiry and the evidence already developed, but if indeed there is money changing hands, and they can be linked to political moves, political policy situations that were actually enacted, well, that's bribery. And that's in the Constitution. And no amount of just plain ignoring the facts is going to do anything except infuriate people that say, hey, something must be done. What are your thoughts? 817-379-2172.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Good morning from the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. I'm so happy. It's been so cool and so wonderful from a standpoint of weather. We had a baking summer and things are much cooler now, and I'm very happy. If you happen to live in the North Texas area, enjoy your day today. Speaking of North Texas, something happened here in November of 1963. It was the 22nd, in fact. A young American president, a Democrat, someone who had enchanted the entire nation so much so that his administration was compared to Camelot, was shot down in the street of Dallas, Texas, in Dealey Plaza. It happened in broad daylight. And there were appropriate police actions. There were actions from the federal government, some that raised serious questions about the entire affair, and these questions have never been answered. But as I'm fond of saying, the truth will out. It may take a while, but the truth will out. There is an article today from Fox News. A former Secret Service agent who witnessed the assassination of President John F. Kennedy has broken his silence about the event, is now casting doubt on findings from the Warren Commission that investigated the president's death. His name is Paul Landis. He said for a very, very long time he believed Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone when he killed Kennedy in '63, but now he's beginning to doubt himself. Now he says, I begin to wonder. He said his newfound skepticism results from discrepancies between the Warren Commission and his own experiences on the day that Kennedy was shot and killed while riding inside a Lincoln Continental convertible. Happened in Dealey Plaza. I've been there myself. It's a haunting place. Landis was in a car following Kennedy. It was a Cadillac. He heard several gunshots ring out. Several elements of the recent account of Landis of what happened on Dealey Plaza that day contradict his official statements just after the shooting. He stressed he never believed in conspiracy theories. He was adamant to tell what he saw and did. The Warren Commission found no evidence that Oswald or Oswald's assassin, Jack Ruby, were part of any conspiracy, domestic or foreign, to kill the president. They stated at the time that one bullet had passed through President Kennedy's body, then struck then Texas Governor John Connally, hitting him in the back, the thigh, the chest, and the wrist. Critics of the commission's theory called it the magic bullet theory. This entire theory was based on one event, that being a bullet found on a stretcher that carried Governor Connally as he was transported around Parkland Memorial Hospital after the attack. Now, former Secret Service agent Landis has told the New York Times he initially discovered the bullet found on the stretcher. He recalled the bullet was lodged in the limousine seat behind Kennedy, behind where he was seated, after the president was brought to the hospital. It was a piece of evidence that I realized right away was very important. I didn't want it to disappear or get lost, so it was, Paul, you've got to make a decision, and he grabbed it. The story goes on to say he did so to stop souvenir hunters. He entered the hospital and placed it on Kennedy's stretcher. He had hoped that evidence would help doctors determine what had happened. He surmised the stretchers might have been pushed together at one point and the bullet fell near Connally. Landis speculates the bullet lost velocity when it entered Kennedy's back and burrowed into the limousine seat. He'd always thought that Oswald acted alone, but now he's unsure. He's about to release his memoir, The Final Witness. A Kennedy's Secret Service agent breaks his silence after 60 years. Now, this has not been the first time that Landis told his story. He has talked to former Secret Service Director Louis Merletti and Cleveland lawyer James Robinow. He said that if true, which I tend to believe, it's likely to reopen the question of a second shooter, if not more. If the bullet we now know as the magic or pristine bullet stopped in President Kennedy's back, it means the central thesis of the Warren Report, the single bullet theory, is wrong. Like many people, I have spent an awful lot of time poring over every piece of available as evidence on the assassination of JFK. In my searches and in my research, I've discovered that anything that could be changed has been changed. But it all comes down, and this is where my quandary appeared. The original FBI report on the assassination said that bullet number 1, fired by Lee Harvey Oswald, went through the president's back as described. The second shot hit Connally. The third shot bounced off of a curbstone that was farther down the street, a piece of the curbstone hitting a man standing there under the triple overpass. Those are the 3 shots that Oswald fired. Which one hit President Kennedy in the head? None of those. But I couldn't get the bullet from the limousine. I had figured out that the bullet was still in the limousine and had bounced around because I believe the FBI's analysis of the shooting. But that led nowhere from a standpoint of resolving the fact that there was no conspiracy. That bullet changes everything. If what Mr. Landis is saying is true, if this former Secret Service agent, Paul Landis, is now telling the truth after years of not telling the truth, then there's another shooter. And if that's the case, who was that person? What were their motivations? And why is it 60 years later that we still don't have those answers? This is the Wells Report for Wednesday. It is September 13th. I am John David Wells. Coming up in just a couple of seconds, the speaker may lose his job. We'll tell you why in just a moment.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
Do you own a timeshare? At first, maybe it seemed like a great investment, but then you realized a lot of the promises made to you were simply not true. A little later, you started receiving the monthly maintenance fees and additional associated bills they failed to mention when you signed the agreement. And now their fees keep rising. Your times to actually use the timeshare keep shrinking, and the resort has no interest in letting you out of the agreement. Your vacation dream has turned into a timeshare nightmare. An overwhelming, never-ending financial obligation that will fall on your children after you're gone. And it seems as if there is no way out. Well, here's some great news. There is a way out. The Timeshare Exit Hotline has helped hundreds of people just like you. Desperate people who thought they were stuck in this burden forever. Although most professionals in the timeshare industry are legitimate, there are those that use aggressive, sometimes even misleading sales tactics to try and trick innocent people into signing their lives away. We've heard many stories of people who have been lied to and others who were kept in a room for over 10 hours, not provided water or anything to eat, pressured until they were exhausted. These people finally signed a contract just to get out of there. If you're one of the unfortunate people who have been roped into a timeshare nightmare and feel there is no way out, call the number on your screen right now. When we take your case, it means we are highly confident that we can win. We'll provide you with an affordable, one-time fixed fee and our 100% client satisfaction guarantee. Now you don't have to face arrogant, aggressive salespeople alone. We're experts in consumer protection, real estate, and contract law. Even if they bullied you into an agreement, rest assured they're not going to bully us. So don't wait. Call us right now. Even if you've tried another company that failed you, call us. Our track record of successful negotiations speaks for itself. The call is free, the information is free, and there is absolutely no obligation. A single phone call could free you of this burden. So don't wait. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline right now. If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. What do we do here? We report the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. In short, we de-propagandize the mainstream media. We do make commentary. That is not news. That is opinion, both yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. It's been a very busy couple of days in Washington, D.C. There is now an official impeachment inquiry against the current president of the United States. But he's not the only political figure in Washington, D.C. that may indeed be fighting for his job. We're discussing Speaker Kevin McCarthy. This from the New York Times. Speaker McCarthy's job is on the line as the House returns yesterday to confront a funding impasse that could lead to a government shutdown or challenge to the California Republicans' hold on the speakership in the House of Representatives. Far-right Republicans are refusing to back a measure to keep the federal government funded past September 30th without substantial spending cuts and stringent new border policies that stand little chance of becoming law. That is bias on the part of the New York Times. We point that out. They're also threatening to depose Mr. McCarthy should he turn to Democrats for assistance in scrounging together the votes that he needs to avoid a shutdown. Intensifying the pressure, Representative Matt Gaetz, a Florida Republican and frequent critic of the Speaker, planned to deliver a floor speech. As a matter of fact, he did deliver that. He delivered a floor speech that was absolutely stinging and a serious indictment of the Speaker and the deal he made to become the Speaker of the House.
I rise today to serve notice. Mr. Speaker, you are out of compliance with the agreement that allowed you to assume this role. The path forward for the House of Representatives is to either bring you into immediate total compliance or remove you pursuant to a motion to vacate the chair. We have had no vote on term limits or on balanced budgets as the agreement demanded and required. There's been no full release of the January 6 tapes. As you promised, there has been insufficient accountability for the Biden crime family. And instead of cutting spending to raise the debt limit, you relied on budgetary gimmicks and rescissions so that you ultimately ended up serving as the valet to underwrite Biden's debt and advance his spending agenda. Mr. Speaker, you boasted in January that we would use the power of the subpoena and the power of the purse. But here we are, 8 months later, and we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden. That's how you know that the rushed and somewhat rattled performance you just saw from the Speaker isn't real. At this point, during Democrat control over the House of Representatives, they had already brought in Don Jr. 3 times. And we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden. Power of the subpoena and power of the purse. Only thing the 118th Congress is known for at this point is electing Kevin McCarthy Speaker and underwriting Biden's debt. And unfortunately, there's only one of those things we can remediate at this time. Power of the purse. Our leadership right now is asking us to vote for a continuing resolution. A vote for a continuing resolution is a vote to continue the Green New Deal, a vote to continue inflationary spending, and in the most troubling of fashions, a vote for a continuing resolution is a vote to continue the election interference of Jack Smith. Mr. Speaker, we told you how to use the power of the purse. Individual, single subject spending bills that would allow us to have specific review, programmatic analysis, and that would allow us to zero out the salaries of the bureaucrats who have broken bad, targeted President Trump, or cut sweetheart deals for Hunter Biden. September 30th is rapidly approaching, and you have not put us in a position to succeed. There is no way to pass all the individual appropriations bills now, and it's not like we didn't know when September 30th was going to show up on the calendar. I must be better, you must be better, and this House must be better, for it is the last best hope for tens of millions of Republicans. We demand real oversight against this weaponized government. Just look at the bribery. If tens of millions of dollars flowing from foreign corrupt people into the bank accounts of the Biden family wasn't enough for actual impeachment, why were we even looking? Joe Biden deserves impeachment for converting the vice presidency into an ATM machine for virtually his entire family. We all see it. We all know it. Now, moments ago, Speaker McCarthy endorsed an impeachment inquiry. This is a baby step following weeks of pressure from House conservatives to do more. We must move faster. Now, I will concede that the votes I have called for will likely fail: term limits, balanced budgets, maybe even impeachment. I am prepared for that eventuality, because at least if we take votes, the American people get to see who's fighting for them and who's willing to tolerate more corruption and business as usual. Mr. Speaker, dust off our written January agreement. You have a copy. Reflect on the spirit of that agreement and build on the start that we had moments ago. Begin to comply. No continuing resolutions, individual spending bills or bust, votes on balanced budgets and term limits, subpoenas for Hunter Biden and the members of the Biden family who've been grifting off of this country, and the impeachment for Joe Biden that he so richly deserves. Do these things or face a motion to vacate the chair. And let me alert the country, a motion to vacate might not pass at first, but it might before the 15th vote. And if Democrats bail out McCarthy, as they may do, then I will lead the resistance to this uniparty and the Biden, McCarthy, Jeffries government that they are attempting to build. I know that Washington isn't a town where people are known for keeping their word. Well, Speaker McCarthy, I'm here to hold you to yours.
And that just about sums it all up. There are serious issues with the speakership of Kevin McCarthy. And Matt Gaetz is a guy referred to as a conservative firebrand who, at least in this speech, makes it abundantly clear that he will move forward. We have seen other speeches very similar to these, specifically Chip Roy of Texas. Chip Roy's speech is along those same lines. And, oh yeah, sorry about that. I hit the button, but it didn't work. Hi. So what I am saying is that there have been serious speeches given by serious men, and they have been, it appears, biding their time until they had a moment to actually do something about it. And of course, that's this week. Remember, the House of Representatives just got off their August recess yesterday. And so they came back and they have leverage. They have this continuing resolution. Will this pass? It's possible. It is possible that it will pass. But it's not going to pass without some very serious reflection on just exactly what got us here. Speaker McCarthy did point out that the appropriations bills, there are 12 of them. Regular order is what they call this. And indeed, through the process of regular order, they passed those bills. That is a good start. Remember these gigantic omnibuses? The last one signed by President Trump, and he said, I'm not signing another one of these. And so the Republican Party modified their way of doing business when they got a hold of the control of the House of Representatives and got away from these Democrat-run gigantic omnibus bills. That's good. However, there are certain things that have to be taken care of. The House of Representatives have already pointed these things out. Specifically, a weaponized executive branch. There is a speech by Chip Roy that talks about one of the Federalist Papers written by James Madison. He is the guy that crafted the Constitution of the United States. And in that speech, James Madison said that the most effective weapon against an unbridled executive branch was the power of the purse. That is one of the reasons why the House of Representatives, those people most directly representative of us, have the power of that purse. But as Representative Gates just pointed out, the uniparty, in other words, this political coin, the left side, the Democrat Party, the right side, the Republican Party, but it's the same coin. That coin is not the way this particular government was designed to work. It should be adversarial, with two parties arguing over details of policy, but all pointed at the Constitution of the United States. What has happened is the uniparty has basically found common ground. They even brag about it. They call it bipartisanship. No, we don't want bipartisanship. We want adversarial political parties duking it out in the House of Representatives, debating it thoughtfully in the Senate of the United States, turned over to a president elected by a majority of the people of the United States through the Electoral College, and with the background of being able to override that veto if the legislature believes that it should. The checks and balances, the separation of powers. But when you have both sides of the political coin actually forging themselves together, then what you end up with is you end up with that particular uniparty backing away from the Constitution of the United States. And that is what we see. It's not just American history, not just recent American history. It is world history that when governments turn away from individual freedom and liberty, they are not long-lasting governments, and there is bloodshed, revolutions, in fact. What I think is one of the most magic things about the founding papers of this nation is that they're based on human nature. They're based on natural law. That's what Thomas Jefferson called it. Our rights come from God, not from the government. And therefore, the government, heretofore, has been stopped from infringing on those laws. However, as the uniparty has grown in strength, as it has consolidated its power behind the disturbing word bipartisanship, what we have is we have the Constitution of the United States suffering, and therefore the concepts of freedom and liberty are being distanced by this government from we the people. And that's why there's trouble in these lands right now. That's why there's trouble. The farther you get away from the Constitution of the United States, the farther you get away from human nature. The farther you get away from human nature, the more absurd things appear to human beings. The more absurd things appear to human beings, the more concerned they get as to where the government of the United States is taking a population, ours, us. And all of this leads back to the need for unbridled political power, which is a human trait. And the only way for unbridled political power to take hold in the United States of America is to first degrade the Constitution of the United States and then sunder the will of the people, or at least try. What these people don't understand is the people of the United States will not tolerate that course of action. And it may take a while, but suddenly we have politicians standing up and actually saying the right thing, but they're Republicans. So will they do the right thing?
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
This is the Wells Report. I'm John David Wells. Civics is not taught much in our classes, in our classrooms in public schools. And that's a mistake. There are, however, people that do understand that civics is still acutely important to the United States. I dare say that most people listening to this broadcast who are, say, in their 30s learn more about their government watching this broadcast than any memory they can determine or discern from their public school lives. Here's another one, not from this broadcast, but from Chip Roy, who is the Republican congressperson from Texas.
You never met a set of policies that you could possibly imagine you could do more to undermine and damage your own country than the policies that this administration and the colleagues on the other side of the aisle are adopting. So the question is, will my GOP colleagues, will my Republican colleagues give $14.1 billion to the Department of Interior to continue to lease fewer federal acres for oil and gas? Will we do that? Will we give $9 billion to an EPA that is imposing a methane fee and taxes on the oil and gas industry that are crippling my friends' constituents, my constituents, and every American across the country? Or the EPA that's targeting the largest U.S. oil field or proposing rules to shut down half of Texas' coal-fired plants. They want to weaken our grid even further, while also giving $10 billion for federal wind and subsidies that is destroying our grid. That's the question. How about $5 million for climate czar John Kerry to fly around in his private jet, talking about how great he is, advancing a Green New Deal agenda? That's the reality. And so here's the question. And I think this is what I really want to be able to engage with my colleague, my friend from Pennsylvania, about. What do we do? What do we do in the face of an administration and colleagues that are at war with the American people, that are endangering the American people with open borders while people die of fentanyl, that are at war with the American people and their ability to afford energy, have gas in their car, have a job, have electricity, have a strong grid, at war with our members of our military, making them lose their job if they don't take a mandatory jab because Dr. Fauci said so? What do we do about an administration that's at war with the people, targeting them, defining them as domestic terrorists by the FBI, if you're challenging school boards, targeting them with IRS agents, with 85,000 new IRS agents to go audit them, to raise revenue? What do you do in the face of an administration that is doing that every single day? I will tell you what you do if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat who actually believes in the Article 1 of the United States Constitution. I give you James Madison. I give you the father of the Constitution in Federalist 58. The House of Representatives can not only refuse, but they alone can propose the supplies requisite for the support of the government. They, in a word, hold the purse. This power of the purse may in fact be regarded as the most complete and effectual weapon with which any constitution can arm the immediate representatives of the people, the people's house, for obtaining a redress of every grievance and for carrying into effect every just and salutary measure. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what the founders gave us to push back on an executive branch that is out of control and operating in direct detriment to the American people, or a Senate that refuses to do its job. The people's house has this tool, and we should use it. I think my friend from Pennsylvania agrees.
This is what we have.
And so it's very plain. It's very plain. Finally, we have these guys standing up and talking. Are they being attacked? Are they being ridiculed? Of course. But are they being truthful? Well, that's up to you to decide. Are they being truthful? There was an awful lot of ringing of truth in that particular bell rung by Chip Roy, at least in my mind. But then again, what have I told you about the politics of this broadcast? The Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, the Federalist Papers, this time Federalist 58, and yes, the Declaration of Independence, the Charter that brought forth the greatest country on the face of the planet. And as I said, the House of Representatives, the power of the purse, is required to slow down, if not outright stop, an out-of-control executive branch. Chip Roy said it perfectly.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. It is Wednesday, September 13th, Hump Day, year of our Lord 2023. And so, the President of the United States woke up this morning and had to confront the fact that his personal business dealings, or those of his family, or those of his son, are now under serious scrutiny. Up to this point, it was something that could, for all intents and purposes, be shuttled aside as just partisan politics. In the words of a offshore media personality who asked a question of a representative, is this just political revenge? No. No, it's not, because if it wasn't tied to a specific word in the Constitution of the United States regarding the impeachment of a president, that word being bribery, well, that changes things dramatically. So, Kevin McCarthy came up with an impeachment inquiry, an official one, and he kicked it off yesterday. Democrats immediately said that the whole thing was absurd and started saying there's no evidence, and so on and so on. They essentially deny all of these charges. Jesse Waters, in a brilliant summation of all of this, asked all the questions that have to be answered. If you missed it, it's in the first hour of the Wells Report. Go back to it and listen to what Jesse Waters, listen to all those questions that he asked. Why 20 shell companies? Why offshore business accounts? Why do you have houses that are well above a price range of a United States senator, especially at the time they were purchased? On and on and on. So watch that piece. You can go to foxnews.com, search Jesse Waters. It'll pop right up. You really ought to watch it because it's brilliant journalism. It's exactly what we try to do here. Jesse's got a much better budget, and he's got many more resources. And by the way, I tip my hat to the guy for just putting together a brilliant report that you ought to see. That's why I played it on this broadcast. So Democrats are saying, this is ridiculous. Nothing to see here. Let's move on. They're trying to do what they've been doing. And in their experience, their course of action sustained by the mainstream media, which is anything except a free press. Fox News reports it this way. Democrats who critics claim have used impeachment and special counsels to undermine former President Trump should not be shocked by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's announcement of an inquiry into President Biden's alleged influence peddling. This from a former top aide for President Bush, excuse me. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy yesterday announced a formal impeachment inquiry against President Biden, citing serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct. The impeachment process had only been used twice in the first 222 years of the Union, against Democrat President Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton, until Democrats impeached Trump twice during his 4 years in office. Nancy Pelosi, the Democrats have set the precedent here. This is something that echoes what I've been broadcasting on the Wells Report. This from former George W. Bush speechwriter Mark Thiessen. He was on Fox News the other day. He said, let's put aside the merits of this impeachment inquiry for a second. What did the Democrats think was going to happen? Thiessen said that Pelosi, the Democrat from California, her party overtly and overly abused political and judicial institutions for years as a means of attacking Donald Trump. And then he got into Trump-Russia collusion probe and so on and so on and so on. All these things that the Democrats did, did they think there was not going to be any blowback? Did they believe the Republicans were not going to turn around and say, okay, you've set the precedent, we're going to use all these tools against you? Again, something that I've been talking about for years. The Democrats have called down the thunder, and hell follows with it. And here they are. Republicans are looking at this saying they're using this institutions. This is fair game. Also, we don't trust the institutions anymore. We need tools of an impeachment inquiry to go after the deep state to get to the bottom of all of this. It is a hanging curveball. And the President of the United States has to deal with all of it. But he also has to deal with other things. As I am fond of saying, I've said it once on this broadcast already, the truth will out. Border Patrol leadership last month set daily book-out targets for its particular sectors on the Texas and America-Mexico border. They were trying to do a bookkeeping move to keep escalating numbers of migrants in custody at a manageable level. And let me explain what a book-out is. A book-out is a U.S. Customs and Border Protection final release of persons in their custody defined as a book out from custody at a CBP holding facility, transferred to ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, alternative to detention, enrollment through ICE, or released, repatriated, or expelled from the United States. What's going on is they're being released into the United States. There was a DHS memo yesterday that said, all these people we released, we may not be able to find them. Well, you're certainly not going to be able to find them unless you come up with the mechanisms required to provide the tools for people looking for them. And that is going to take different political leadership. Indeed, maybe even a different political system, because Republicans and Democrats, they haven't solved this problem for almost half a century. Which gets back to what I keep saying, which is, you know what we need to do? We need to stop electing politicians. We need to start electing each other. That's what politicians do. We should take their example and start electing our neighbors. The question is, which of your neighbors do you hate enough to send them to Washington, D.C. against their will? So there was an email from Acting Deputy Chief to the Border Patrol field agents and deputies, and they say that email said the sectors are facing an influx that's outpacing the numbers of migrants being released or transferred. In other words, the sink is beginning to overflow. The email was obtained by Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody's office. They say the encounters every day continue to surpass the daily permanent bookouts or releases, and in-custody numbers continue to rise, creating significant risks to agents and detainees. So what do? They start releasing more people into the United States. Well, what about the risks to Americans and their families? Okay, we're worried about the agents and the detainees. Well, what about the American people? Their families. This border needs to be closed. This is the simplest way of fixing it. Close the border. Simultaneously, after you close the border, except for the international ports of entry, those are the only places you can cross the border, period. After you do that, you have a vein pulsing discussion with the government of Mexico, and you say, either stop fentanyl production in your country or we'll do it for you. It is completely and totally on you. Do it or we will. And then you find some other president, because this one's not going to do it. You contact the reigning dictator of China, and you say, Chairman Xi, stop sending precursor chemicals to Mexico to be turned into fentanyl. Or we're going to charge you $500 billion of the sovereign debt that we owe you. We're going to charge you for poisoning our people. But it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. China pulled off COVID-19. Yes, with the American government's help, funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Yes. China attacked us biologically. They are now attacking us through chemical weaponry. Fentanyl. So we now have a biological attack. We now have a chemical attack. Every single day, the United States of America is sundered by cyber attack from China. These people are at war with us. And it's about time that somebody stood up and said, you need to stop this or we will pulverize you. We did it with the Soviet Union, a little thing called the Cuban Missile Crisis. Is this as acute? Well, it depends on whether or not you believe that 70,000 American deaths at the hands of fentanyl is worth going to war over. Well, let's see. We went to World War II. We went to war in World War II over 2,000. We destroyed a national government or two after the 9/11 attacks, where we lost 3,000. And so now we're in a situation where we lose 70,000 people. What are we waiting for? We know where the fentanyl precursor chemicals are coming from. We know where they're processed. What are we waiting for? I don't believe that Mexico wants to go to war with the United States, but I do believe that China does. All they need to be successful, or at least believe they're going to be successful against the United States, is more time. What we need to do is give them less time. Confront them. You've killed 70,000 of our people. You will stop, or we will pulverize you. And it all goes right back to this border. Wide open by the Biden administration, by the Democrat Party, fighting tooth and nail to keep that border open. And because of the vagaries of government, these memos get written. Hey, look, we're getting more people coming across the border than we can detain, so the detainee numbers are coming up, and that becomes a political problem. So what you need to do is you need to start releasing people into the interior of the United States, which the DHS says we'll probably never find again. That's where we stand. Is that where you want to stand? Chip Roy, you just saw on videotape saying that this government is at war with the people of the United States. Does that sound like political hyperbole to you? Or does it sound like a reasoned observation of what this government's doing? Which does it look like? 70% of the people of the United States believe the country's on wrong track. Do any of these policies assuage that understanding of the people of the United States about their own country? The answer is no, it doesn't. And so, since the government of the United States refuses to correct itself, it is up to us, we the people of the United States. Yes, there are people in the political process that are realizing, because they're really good at it, Matt Gaetz, Chip Roy, they're realizing the momentum that the American people are transmitting to Washington, D.C. and reacting. Yeah, they're reacting. A couple of really good floor speeches. One from a year ago, that was Chip Roy's, and one from Matt Gaetz from yesterday. They are putting their finger on exactly what's going on, and they're pointing at government policy that is insufficient. And they're also pointing at Republican willingness to cooperate with those policies for the sake of politics, which may cost Speaker McCarthy his job. All the while, presidential policy, again, closing in, inflation up 0.6%, over half a point, rising the annual rate to 3.7%. This is the second month in a row where inflation has increased. Those words that Bidenomics is working? No. Bidenomics is not working. What will the Federal Reserve Bank do? Well, they're going to raise interest rates. What they have done is they have very slowly raised interest rates to create an artificial recession in our American economy to slow it down and thus slow down inflation. Well, that makes things tough for people. How do you get a raise from your employer when the employer can't get money to advance their businesses at a reasonable rate? The answer is they don't. So no raises this year. All of this is calculated. All of this is external to reality, and all of it rests on the resolute desk of the President of the United States.
you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. It is Wednesday. I hope you have a wonderful day today. If you are in North Texas, I hope you enjoy the incredibly beautiful weather that we've had after a scorching summer that essentially turned us all into fried eggs on the sidewalk. Horrifying. International news now. 2 Russian vessels were damaged. 26 people wounded yesterday in a Ukrainian missile attack on a shipyard in occupied Crimea. That is what this entire war is all about between Ukraine and Russia, the Crimean Peninsula. The Russians are not going to give up the major military bases they have in the Crimean Peninsula, and Ukraine is essentially making a gigantic mistake by saying, no, that's our land and you don't get it. Well, that's not going to work. It is simply not going to work. And so the war continues. The submarine Rostov-on-Don and the large landing ship Minsk were in dry dock for repairs at a Sevastopol shipyard. That's one of those military installations on the Crimea. The Russian Defense Ministry said that the targeted shipyard was hit with 10 cruise missiles, 3 unmanned boats, and the submarine and the large landing ship were damaged. This is something that's happening, and underscoring that is a visit by North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. He got together with Russian President Vladimir Putin and said that his country would always stand by Moscow as it defends its security interests on the anti-imperialist front, as the 2 authoritarian leaders met at a space base and adjoining rocket facility in a far-flung corner of eastern Russia. That happened yesterday. Kim and Putin's face-to-face talks at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in Siberia lasted for 4 to 5 hours, this according to Russian state media, which had been publishing some of the remarks addressed to the reporters. The talks provide an opportunity for Russia to obtain desperately needed arms and for Kim to appear on a global stage after years of suffocating international sanctions. So the situation is as follows. Where does North Korea get its armaments? They certainly don't build them themselves. Well, they get them from China. And China transports it to North Korea, and North Korea transports it to Russia. That's the way the deal works. So it doesn't look like China and Russia are as deeply committed to each other as is apparent. At least there's some plausible deniability there. Kim then said there's a fierce standoff underway between progress and reactionism, between justice and injustice. These are Communist Party, socialist, well-worn watchwords. They are talking points. But there is an argument that says that Russia is indeed reacting to what is an important security issue that Ukraine is foisting on them, which is you don't get your naval bases on the Black Sea. Well, Russia is not going to put up with that. They are absolutely going to have their naval bases. And Crimea is the apple of everyone's eye on this. And Ukraine needs to find a way to give the Russians access to their military bases, a land bridge, what have you. I've been talking about it for years. And I dare say that if President Trump indeed does regain the presidency and says that he can stop this war in 24 hours, that's how he's going to do it. Of course, Chris Christie says, well, what he's going to do is he's going to sell out Ukraine. No, what he's going to do is he's going to explain it to Ukraine in very straightforward terms. Russia is not going to give up one of their only warm water ports. 2 of them, in fact. They're just not going to do it. You have to come up with some other reason to stop the war. And the reason is give us more Russian territory. You can even ask for 2 for 1. Expand the country of Ukraine. And by the way, while you're at it, maybe what you do is you ask for more Russian territory that would, say, for example, make up for the Chernobyl nuclear accident where much of Ukraine was poisoned and will remain poisoned for the next 20,000 years. That's how President Trump is going to make all this stop, if indeed he becomes the president, or if someone who steps up to the plate and says, hey, we've got to do something about this, this is how it's going to happen. In the meantime, because that has not happened, we're giving Russia and China an opportunity to engage with each other. We are giving North Korea an opportunity to engage with Russia. And I don't know if you've looked at a map recently, but if you have looked at a map recently, you'll note that all these countries are on the same landmass. And that's an awful lot of land that is in control of what are referred to as authoritarian leaders. And these kinds of things, usually in retrospect, are referred to as the winds of war. The sides are being divvied up. The alliances are being struck. If indeed these early moves are not stopped in ways satisfactory to all parties, we are, as many people in Eastern Europe, specifically leaders of countries, Romania, Poland, etc., Hungary, we are listening to the knocking sound of someone outside our front door, that someone being World War III, trying to get in. That's the way it looks to me. Just my opinion. Probably doesn't mean anything. The executive producer of the Wells Report is Dirk Steele. The associate producer and publicist is Jube Dankworth. My name is John David Wells. See you again tomorrow for the Wells Report. All right, then. God bless you guys. Thanks very much. I appreciate all of it. All right. Take good care. And I will see you again tomorrow, okay?